Hey guys, been a little while since I have been with you, so let's start it up. In that break, a wonderful, generous viewer out there, Buzz, has sent me some gear. Now, you've seen this brush on this channel before, and so you know it's not going to be that. I'm going to continue using this B35 from Zenith. That's the American code. There's another code for the European Zenith nomenclature. This was a special handle that was commissioned by our group on Reddit, and it's got a special little engraving, that sort of thing. I'm going to get the brush back in water. Been soaking maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And then the blade I'm going to use has been used once before at least, the Astra Platinum. And the reason I'm choosing the Astra is because the other gear for today is new to me. And kind of. These three items were sent to me from Buzz, and he is a fellow Stirling liker. He enjoys the performance and value of Stirling very much like I do. And he sent me the Ben Franklin soap and the Agar soap. And then he also sent me the Agar Splash, and then he sent me the Ben Franklin Splash. And so that's just wonderfully kind of him. And he wanted me to try. He sent me this Henson razor to try out, and that's so kind of him. And so we'll give it a shot, and I'll talk a little bit about the razor today, but I won't spend a lot of detailed time on it. I'm going to make a separate video for that as a kind of a pseudo review. And I want to get a few shaves in with it so that I have that in my knowledge. And so in the review, I can bring that to bear. But basically, it is this one is the aluminum version. They do make other metalled versions. You can see it's kind of got a small head. It's very low profile, and it is very angular, kind of like the Blackbird, right? I love the handle. I can tell you that much right now. I think it's attractive. It's got a kind of a little bit of a design. It's kind of minimalistic, but it's kind of interesting at the same time. The Schick Krona handle is a vintage handle that is similar in shape in that it's fairly conical, a little bit more narrow toward the head, and then it expands a little bit toward the end. And so when you're holding it, you just have a great sense. If you're dipping down and holding it upside down like this, you know it's not going to fall out because it gets bigger on the end there, and it just feels very nimble. And of course, it's aluminum. That also contributes to the nimble feeling. But I love this kind of handle, and that's all aluminum. It looks like. In terms of quality of workmanship here from Henson, terrific. It's not super high quality when it doesn't count. Like on the underside of the thing here, you can see some milling marks. Who cares, you know? None of the surfaces, none of the corners are sharp that are going to bother you. The top cap here has sharp corners, but that's covered up by the base plate. And I mean, you could really cut yourself if you pressed really hard, but I mean, it's precision milled equipment. It's low tolerances, and so that's the way it should be. When it's holding a blade right there, and so it needs to have a good, firm, sharp edge to be able to do that at a good tolerance level. So now the base plate does have this shiny part right here. You know, is that shined up aluminum? Is that some kind of stainless steel, part to where the bolt there can go through, and that maybe keeps the handle here as it rotates on it. Maybe it keeps things from grinding. I don't quite know what that is for sure. I'm sure some searching on their website would let us know, right? I'm going to take the blade out and put it on. One thing that kept me from maybe shopping around for an Astra, for a Henson for myself, was the fact that it was aluminum, and I usually don't like light razors like that. But also was what I'm about to show you. This is pretty normal with the top cap here, with a little rail that centers the blade. The tabs of the blade go all the way to the edge and are kind of flush or less with the exterior surface. Some people really like that. The base plate here has a big expanse of space that isn't touched by the blade. And where the blade touches are these tiny little bevels there and then there. Sometimes that means you might get a chattery experience. However, those little bevels, they're kind of far apart. So they're closer to the edge. Maybe 3 millimeters of exposure, 2 or 3 millimeters, where the blade is hanging out over that bottom support. But one thing that the blade is, and this is why I initially didn't get it, was because the blade doesn't have much room in there to curve. And so what this razor does is there's a small curve on the inside part there, and then where it hits those facets that I told you about that touch the blade on the bottom, it really tweaks the blade down at a sharper angle. And it's actually a little bit more firm as I'm trying to tighten it up here, because we're really pushing the blade in an almost unnatural way. It's not an even arc like most razors have. I'm not saying that's good or bad. What that could do is, if it tweaks it that hard, that could add some stability to the blade edge, almost like some slants do. Also, if it tweaks it that hard, then that means that we're not dealing with a gradually slanted razor blade. We're dealing one that has more curve at the end. If it does have more curve at the end, like maybe a Fatip that has a lot of curve there, it just doesn't have that peak of the top cap to deal with. And so maybe it's better for getting under your nose and things like that. But if it comes at the angle a little more to where it's a smaller blade to skin angle, then maybe that makes it a good cutter. So we're looking forward to trying all those things out. It doesn't feel like a super light razor, and so it seems that maybe they've given it enough aluminum to where maybe I might enjoy this kind. And so whether I like it or don't like it, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to try it. This is the first time, and it's such a wonderful thing to be able to try shave gear, especially donated and provided by you guys. And I've definitely interacted with Buzz over years on this channel, and I've enjoyed that even more than just trying out a razor. Gave my face just a little bit of water there. I'm going to be using the lather bowl I've been using lately, a melamine type bowl in more of a V shape from the Dollar Tree with epoxied glass decorator beads in the bottom. Really liking it. In terms of best performing bowl for your dollar, I cannot see a better one than this one at this point. So Ben Franklin. I tried a lot of Stirling soap scents before I tried Ben Franklin. I did order maybe a year and a half ago a sample of it. And that was the reason I delayed so long, is because the description was Ben Franklin's sweaty underwear, or something like that. That's kind of the vibe that was being proliferated. And it is a strong scent. It has kind of some spices going on. Is it musky a little bit? Yeah. Oh, almost like there's a little bit of conifer in there, like pine or something as well. Maybe a small note of that. Cedar, maybe something like that. I'm just guessing here. Now, you'll notice that this one is, if it's not new, it's pretty darn close to it. And you can work your brush over that like normal if you want. But what I usually do with these is press them down, because otherwise water is going to get into the crannies. Any part that's sticking up out of the way is going to potentially break loose, get on and stick on your brush, and that kind of thing. And so I want kind of a flat surface to work on. And so I always press them down, and it gives you a chance to see, if you're not familiar with Stirling soaps like Buzz and I are, just how kind of malleable it is. I'm spreading it out, putting it down in the valleys, that sort of thing. And now as my brush goes over it, then it'll be more uniform in terms of how it picks up soap and that sort of thing. I'm going to make sure there's no soap rising above the surface so that it gets all over the cap and things like that. But that's normal for a hot process soap to kind of come that way. And to my wet face, I'm going to rub a little of that, what got on my... There's got to be some like frankincense, you know, that kind of a seasoning, that kind of a smell here in this. Very kind of savory, spicy, you know, kind of thing. And I'm really glad to receive the tub. Buzz really, I don't know if he just kind of, I know one of them was used, and so I believe he probably picked from his own inventory, and that's great because, you know, I hate to see soaps go unused, says the guy who has over 500, right? But someday I'm going to do something with those. They will not go unused, so don't you worry about that. So here is the Ben Franklin, and I'm really glad to have a full tub of it because I enjoyed it when I used it before in the sample, but a lot of times the sample just doesn't have the full strength flavor, fragrance, potency that the soap does. I'm going to inject one little tidbit. I got on sale online and stuff, and I've used, and I've shown this a few times on my channel, a little credit card wallet where I store my blades that I am currently using. Each one of these has at least one use on it. And that was kind of getting a little crowded because I was also in each slot underneath the Gillette Silver Blue blade, for instance, that was active, that maybe had 3 uses on it. One that I was probably going to throw away at about 10 or 15 uses and start with a new one. There would be underneath it one that was my marathon version of that might have 50 uses on it. What I did was I found one of these little credit card, it's a credit card wallet on sale, like a little briefcase. And this one's metallic, but it was on sale, so I got it. So it's not going to be as nice to sit in water like the other one is aluminum, you know. So I'll have to keep it away from water, but it's basically the same thing. And this has all my marathon blades in it. I don't have time to go through all of them, but you know, this one has 17 uses. It's a Wizamet Super Iridium. I've got a Gillette 7 o'clock black. The dots are inside there. I need to find my feather because that one's got a lot of dots. Here's my GSB that has, 26 uses on it. So by taking all my marathon blades out and putting them in a special case, now I can see the blades that I have that are kind of more for daily use much more easily since they're all in one nice container. I'm happy about that. So the Astra Platinum is ready. And I have not washed my face, so the first pass of the shaving soap Lather is kind of going to be my face wash. Now it just takes about 15 seconds of loading, probably not even that, with this brush in its current condition to pull up plenty of soap from the tub. So let's do that. I need to move my shirt so that I can see the counter. I started at 25, so we'll go to 40. Oh, see, already we've got sudsy goodness coming up. Right, 40's coming up right there. That's quick. That was quick. All right, I'm holding this right above the lather bowl so that it can drip into there. This tub will last me a year of shaves, and so I don't really need to conserve all this little froth, but I just do. Contribute more right now to a little bit of a pre-shave. Very slick this stuff is. And yes, you can shave with just it if you want to. I did that slurry lather method a while back. I need to write that up more specifically. All right. Buzz apologized after he sent me the splash there. The Ben Franklin has menthol in it. And so he must have seen one of my videos where I talked about how I didn't really like menthol as much. Hey, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? And who knows? I like to revisit my own preferences every once in a while. blade that didn't work for me very well 3 years ago. You know, a little obscure blade like a shark or something like that. I'll revisit it every once in a while. And so I did kind of get used to the menthol aftershave that is the chiseled face midnight stag, because that's the only way that particular aftershave comes. And so so we'll have to try this Stirling one out as well. That's just what was in the brush in terms of the water. So we're going to start adding water now. Usually about 15, because I've been using, and this is why consistency is so beneficial when you're developing your technique. I've been using Stirling soaps only for the last few, I don't know, 10, 15 shaves. And so that has told me how much loading I need to do with this brush, because I'm using the same brush as well. How much time I need to load. It tells me, it has allowed me to zoom in and narrow down an optimal time. And also it has told me about how much water I usually use. At first this was quite soupy, but as you see, we are getting nice and wet, creamy here as we integrate the new water with the lather. This is a terrific looking lather. It's got that nice sheen to it that some lathers just have. It's not a sign of a high quality soap that I know of. It just sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't. There are a few soaps out there that will, that sheen there that develops and looks so pretty. It happens right at the point where I like that consistency. And that's almost like a turkey timer that pops up when the turkey is done, right? That's just terrific. So you just gradually add water until that sheen pops out, and then you're good to go. But not all soaps work that way. All right, I think we're going to shave with that, and you saw how little I loaded with, and we've got tons of lather. That's one big solid glob right there in the middle. Splash face on my water one more time. So the scent that's floating around me, yeah, I got that kind of frankincense and leather and cedar. You know, those are the kind of things that jump to my mind. It definitely has an old man vibe to it. I wonder if it has some commonalities with that old English leather, I think was the name of that old aftershave lotion that my mom got me when I was 12. With several days of beard growth, I can really feel my stubble getting pushed around by the brush here. I could have added a little bit more water. You can see how I've got some accumulation around my goatee. And for me, I've discovered that's a sign that I could have more water in my lather if I wanted to. See, this is not slipping off my hand. It's keeping its shape. Now it's a good creamy looking product here. It looks terrific. But even that could use more water. It could take more water if I wanted it to, just to let you guys know, in case you're learning your own preferences. And we're ready to go. All right. Oh, hey, let's try out the Henson with slightly soapy fingers. How does that handle work? Well, that's very secure. there are bands of etching, and in between some of those bands they have done some cross hatching, and other parts it's solid, and then in most coverage there it's a kind of a brushed aluminum, and I found that that's actually quite easy to hold on to. And right now it's the worst case scenario because it's both wet and soapy. No problem at all. So kudos to them. There we go. So this is the plus plus. Now I believe that means medium. The base plate there, on the inside of the base plate, they chose not to print on the outside of the base plate. They have it on the inside and it says plus plus. So that's what we're dealing with today, with a blade that is the Astra Platinum that I believe only has one shave on it. Might have two, but pretty close to a new blade. And Buzz sent me, so kind of him, to include some feathers and some Kai blades. I'm definitely going to try those in this razor, but I thought I'd start with a blade that is more for my face, for my technique and everything, kind of cross-platform. It just works in so many razors, it's crazy. It's just a really nice baseline blade. There are a few others like that, like the Gillette Silver Blue and the Nasset. Work really well for me as a baseline blade. Here we go with the aluminum Henson Plus Plus with an Astra in it. Definitely nimble because of the lack of weight. With some light razors like this, you end up having to pull the razor through your stubble. I'm definitely not going to hold the amount of stubble against the razor today, and so this first pass is, if it's tuggy, which it's not really, I would not hold it against the razor. But the future passes, then that's going to tell me more about the razor. I think it's kind of easy to maintain a good angle with this because either your angle is good or you're not cutting any hair. Almost. Because of the way they designed the head here to be quite flat. The face here that has the blade on it is flat, and so it doesn't really give you a lot of customization options in terms of maybe riding the cap to change the way the pressure goes, that sort of thing. All right, give my face a good, fairly comfortable. It wasn't really any tugging, but almost like a scratching, but not a scratching in the sense of sensation, but not in the sense of feeling the blade wiggle as it moved across my face. It was more of a scratch of the hair being cut, not the blade on my skin, if I can maybe say it that way. It did leave some patches on my face that didn't get amazingly well shaven, but again, that's something I'm not going to hold against it because of the unusual situation of shaving off a week's growth almost. On the other hand, if you're shopping for considering a Henson and you commonly shave off a week's growth and you kind of grow it like I do, where I could get away with shaving every 1.5 days. I generate enough stubble to do that. I'm sorry, I meant to say shaving 3 times every 1.5 days. I could do that if I wanted to. It doesn't grow fast enough for me to shave twice a day. And so if your hair grows that fast, you're probably not going to go a week between shaves anyway, but just to give you the info. All right, now here's the more normal type of pass. Let's see what the Henson delivers. We do have a little bit of drag here. It's not moving super swiftly, but when that happens with a razor, I want to try it across some different soaps and to make sure that my lather is wet enough, that sort of thing. pretty big cavities in the under the blade here, even without these huge slots. These are very large, relatively speaking, but there's still quite a large cavern under there for the hair to go. And so I don't think the hair clogging is really going to be an issue. I'm kind of going by just kind of natural feeling, listening, feeling for the razor's cutting ability so that I adjust my angle kind of on the fly. And to make sure, because like I said, since this side is so flat, if you're too much this way, the blade's not going to touch your skin. If you're too much this way, kind of the same thing. And so like many smooth, mild razors in existence, like Gillette Techs and things like that, you've got a small window of cutting, but if you can master that, which I think most guys are going to be able to do, once you get that skill in place, then you're rewarded with these smooth shaves that are so comfortable yet close at the same time. And there we go. That was the second pass. You know, this scent has got so many things going on in it that it almost lends itself to your brain being able to take it different places. You know, if you want to think of, you know, Ben Franklin's pantaloons, that's the word. I think they said pantaloons in the description, right? I added a little bit of water to this just to try to tweak the slickness there, because this razor may be a little bit more persnickety about that, more particular. And that is a terrific looking lather. That's luxurious. It's moving, as you can probably see. It's slow, but it moves. So I wanted to add a little bit more moisture there. And I think we've gotten a good shave already, and so this is going to be just kind of a pickup pass where we just make sure we've gotten everything. If you haven't shaved with a lather that kind of drips off in good clumps, where the clumps aren't just liquidy, where they're actually, you know, nice, where you can scrape them off your shirt and look at them and say, I'd like to be shaven with that, you know, then I suggest keep adding more water to your lather until that happens. And see what you think about that kind of lather. You may not like it, and that's okay, but give it a shot and see what you think. You may find more better performance in going farther down the road of water there. All right, Henson. I used an ATT against above the tie. What is it? About above the tie? Yeah, that makes sense. I haven't said that in so long. The words sounded strange coming out of my mouth. It was an aluminum razor. It was so light, I felt like I had to kind of pull it through my hairs. One cool thing about aluminum as a razor material, I believe it may be one of the most corrosion resistant, most rust resistant, because stainless steel will rust. It's not totally rust proof. It will rust over time. But aluminum, I understand, won't. And so if you're really looking for something that's going to last ages, although if you take any normal care of your stainless steel, it's going to last forever. But maybe people who live in humid climates, that sort of thing, may have problems with even stainless steel. We've got a nice close shave today, and I can say that the Henson is a good razor. I mentioned how it's torquing of the blade right near the end there. One of the reasons I didn't grab the Henson is because of that, I told you guys. And it's also because, you know, I've got that Gillette Nasset that I've been playing around with. I'm up to 500 shaves with it now. And I didn't really want to subject it to the kind of turning that this would put on it. At least that was my perception. And I do believe that's kind of true. But if you're a normal shaver where you're not going for any kind of blade marathon, right? Just going to use it 10, 15, 20 times, as many times as you, until it gets uncomfortable, then it's not going to be a problem. That curving of the blade right near the end, what it does give you in return is blade stability. I don't know if you heard or didn't hear, but it really sounded like a razor that has really nice grip on that blade edge. And that's because it's pushing it so hard up into a curve. And so that part I definitely like. I like that rigidity. And we're going to give it some more shaves, but my initial impression is really pretty positive. The only gripe I have is that from this, just a first impression, mind you, I could change my mind on this totally, was because I did have some strokes where if I was trying to work on a certain spot, it took me a second to find the angle, experimenting because the angle was so small. But that's really a small thing to complain about, because if you were to buy this razor, and I think I looked, and $50 or $60, right, for the aluminum model, I think that might be the price. Honestly, that could put it at a very valuable price point. The Game Changer sits at that price point as a stainless steel razor. I probably would prefer it over this one in general, the 84 plate specifically. The 68 is too mild for me. But the Game Changer and this guy represent premium quality, premium materials at a more reachable price point, instead of Timeless and Charcoal Goods and Wolfman and all those other expensive ones. You can still have a great shave and a long-lasting product with something like the Henson. The Fatip also is going to be even cheaper and have good ingredients, but it's got kind of the plating going on top of the brass, so it's slightly different. But the Game Changer and this guy represent good quality razors, gives you great experience at a reasonable price point. So that's one reason actually I'm really glad to have been able to try this razor. And I'm definitely going to use it here in the near future with some different blades. I'll probably use it with this blade again. In terms of irritation, I don't have any. In terms of closeness, I feel like it got very close without any discomfort, or I don't have any blade, razor burn. I do have a couple of small patches, but I would attribute that to more inexperience, and I could just do it with another touch-up pass if I wanted to. But I'd attribute that to me, user error, needing to learn more about the razor and hit certain spots again until I know I've got the angle right. And that's a razor user issue and not a razor issue. And that 15 seconds of loading, and I've got another 3 passes of lather in here. So we obviously picked up a lot of soap from that Stirling load from the tub, and this one may have very well been a new tub. And Ben Franklin is one of those polarizing scents. I wouldn't be surprised if Buzz got this one in the mail from an order. He decided to try it out, and then he smelled it and I was like, whoa, that's kind of, not my thing, right? I could see that happening. It's almost like tobacco in that, and Midnight Stag. It's almost like that kind of family of scents. The smell here of this lather has reduced over time. It's really quite manageable. There's a spice in there that I don't usually enjoy. I think I can pick out the bay or the clove. I think there's a little bit of clove in there, and that didn't come out until just now. I'm sure it was there in the beginning, but there were enough of those musky notes, enough of the maybe that conifer note, maybe the frankincense, enough of that kind of thing to where I didn't pick up the clove as much. This could be a good Christmas time scent because of those different items. Almost like this might be something your mom, or parts of it, let's say, those spices that I mentioned, not the musk, but or maybe the leather. Those spices might be something your mom or grandma might have mulled on the stove, at Christmas time, that sort of thing. But I don't think I'd have a problem shaving with that for a long period of time. It is definitely kind of manly in its in the notes that it has. It can take your brain to places in history It can take your brain to the kind of classy type places, even country kind of places with some of these types of scents with spices and things like that. So after I tweaked and added more water, the grand total is about 20 milliliters of water added for 15 seconds of loading. And you can choose your own thing. But for me, with the soap, I do like to rinse around the sides here, and then I'll let it sit open for the duration of the shave. But then when the shave is done, some people like to leave it open for 24 hours after the shave to make sure it dries. But for me, that scent strength is the most important thing. And my choice is to seal it up, preserve that strength. And I've had soaps for half a dozen years or more that don't have any problem with that at all. Now, if it's got some standing water or something, sure, I'll turn it upside down and give it a shake. And, you know, and when I was done with the loading process, I was holding it above the bowl, kind of scraping at it with a brush. So I do get rid of standing water. But just that amount of wetness that you see kind of on the top of the surface of the soap, that just kind of absorbs into the soap. And I've never had any experiences with mold or anything like that. The chemical nature of soap itself lends to being very difficult to creating a mold scenario. All right, I'm just going to clean up some gear. Post-shave care of the brush, as usual, is I slung it out, gave it a good rinse, and that's one thing that having a bowl is nice for. I can have the water going in the bowl and then get the brush going in there and just make sure, and the water will start to flow out, make sure that the brush gets nice and clean and free of lather. Then I took it over to the towel and stropped up and down, turning it to get different directions and stuff. And so that's what it looks like now. Let's do a hairdryer, careful, gentle hairdryer treatment on it with cool as the temperature, high as the speed. In true Ben Franklin format, and in partial tribute to Buzz, because I know he's a pipe smoking fan as well, we'll end the shave with a few puffs on some tobacco. And so here's what it looks like after the hairdryer treatment. Nice big bloom that just kind of keeps getting a little bit bigger each day. And so many tips have split. So we're not losing a lot of backbone yet, and it may never. It's just that the tips are getting softer and softer each day. So I continue to enjoy that brush. Buzz, thank you so much for the Henson, for the soaps. Agar, the other one he sent me, a particular favorite of mine, because I'm a big fan of the oud and sandalwood kind of families there, and Agar is just right in there. And it's I think I may actually have this soap there, but it's hidden away, and it may just be a sample. But I have had the balm for Agar, and I have noticed that it is a perfect complement to so many different shaving soaps. If it's floral or lavender, that Agar can come in and act as it masculinizes, if I can coin a word. It does so many cool things. It's a nice transition story from one thing to another because it's so cross-compatible with its oudness. And so while I have the balm, I've never had the splash. And so especially the Agar splash will be a lot of fun to play around and use and try out. I know that's going to be a big hit. So let's try now the Ben Franklin with menthol. And Stirling does have things like witch hazel, glycerin, and aloe in their splashes, which is better than a lot of makers out there who just basically have alcohol and the fragrance. And of course this one has the menthol. The Ben Franklin scent specifically, being such kind of a powerful one, may be not a bad one to have as a menthol because it's got so much kind of strength and character itself. That amount of menthol is really not that bad at all. Nice. And we've got the summer months coming up. It is coming up to my eyes a little bit and causing them to sting very slightly. And now that's almost gone. So that's not going to last very long at all. A light burning on my skin, but that is something, it's not too bad at all. And like I said, I've learned to get used to it with like Midnight Stag, for instance. And actually what I'm looking forward to is the Ben Franklin soap here. Has its own set of scents that you're going to pick up, but it's not a true representation of the original perfumer's efforts, because the soap base itself has its own smell, and just there's so many nuances that get lost in a soap. And so sometimes you will have the splash or the EDC, the cologne, and you'll get different aspects of it. So it could be, as I enjoy this for maybe the next hour or two, which is how long splashes usually last, that some different parts of the profile may come out. And who knows, it could draw me even closer to this scent as a favorite. So that'll be fun to play around with. And yeah, so very refreshing. I can see why guys use this in the mornings, kind of wake themselves up, that sort of thing. Menthol may have some more healthy, good properties, right? Surely it does. I think I remember somebody mentioning that. If you guys know about menthol and like it a lot and know that it has some good properties, hey, list them in the comments for me. I'd love to learn. But thank you, Buzz. Buzz, that was wonderful, and you have a great mind for picking for me, because I like the Ben Franklin and I love the Agar a lot. So well chosen. And I'm glad to have the Ben Franklin in the full tub form, because that sample just didn't quite have the scent potency that would to let me fully apprehend the scent. So thank you so much. I will use this and enjoy it. And like he said, it was a gift. And if I didn't like it, I could just pass it on to somebody else. So we may share the joy, or I may find that I like it so much I'll keep it. So we'll just see. The lather bowl here, all cleaned out, did great today as well. It's still just working so nicely. And I believe I've reported in on all of the water and soap usage. The Henson here. Let's take a look at everything. It held the blade very nicely. And so again, to remind you what the base plate looks like. And then if you look in there, if you could see closer, you could see these big cavities where the stubble and the stuff can gather to keep it from being clogged up or anything like that. I'm going to set these out on a little washcloth so that everything is able to dry. And there we go. We might start calling those buzzes if I use the Agar or the Ben Franklin, and especially the Henson. Those are buzzes with equipment given to me by Buzz. There we go. All the best to you guys. Buzz, thanks again for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. Happy Easter. This is my shave after the Easter celebration that we Christians have. It's very important for us. That is a lot of people who call themselves Christians but aren't really Christians, they go to church on Christmas and Easter. So it's one of the biggies, right? But if you're a real believer where you are glad to be saved, you're glad that Jesus rescued you from your own sin and has guaranteed your place in heaven. If you follow him and his teachings of love and kindness and truth and mercy and grace and all these other awesome things, then it's a special holiday for you as well. It's when on Friday, Jesus died, was killed, hung on the cross. They put him in a grave. And on Sunday morning, which is 3 days later as Jews count back then, they count inclusive. And so that's why Friday was the first day, Saturday was day 2, Sunday was day 3. So on the third day he rose. He wasn't in the grave anymore. And that means we can be saved. And our old person full of sin has passed and is gone. And our new person can be raised up. That's free of sin because Jesus took on the penalty of that because he's so merciful and he loves us so much. So it's this really cool thing, even if you're not a Christian at all. It's very interesting because it's a situation where justice is satisfied and love is satisfied as well. And that doesn't happen a lot. You know, I love my kid, so I don't want to spank them, you know, that sort of thing. But they committed this horrible atrocity toward their sibling. Well, there should be some kind of consequence, right? But in this case, justice and love are coming together. God loved us so much that he stepped in, Jesus, to take the punishment for our sins. And so justice was satisfied, but then God's awesome love for us was satisfied. And so that's the story of Easter. Thank you so much for letting me share. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. You guys take care now.